Y'all probably think you're gonna die from natural causes, like a disease when you're old and frail, or a random case like cancer. But guys, a lot of people actually never get to be old and die naturally. Some people actually die even as kids. It's pretty rare though. Most of you won't die till you're like 80 years old. But I actually found some of the craziest cases of kids dying way too early. And today I'll be showing you some of these. So guys, if you want to live a long and peaceful life, then make sure you smash that like and subscribe button. Alright the Millibeans, you know when you're getting on a ride and then the worker comes and presses on your seat to make sure it's fastened? When I've had too much water, it's kinda scary. Sometimes the workers almost press hard enough to make me pee a little bit. But y'all, there's actually a very good reason they do this. Because if they don't, you could potentially fall out. And this 14-year-old boy learned the hard way. Like, literally in a hard way. Take a look.
Now this story takes us to Icon Park in Orlando, Florida. And that's where we meet Tyree Sampson, who was just 14 years old at the time. Now on this trip, Tyree was actually visiting the area with his football team for spring break. Now Tyree and his friends all wanted to go on this ride here called the Free Fall. Now the way this ride works is that once everyone's secured on board, it shoots all the way up to the top, which is approximately 430 feet. When it gets to the top of the tower, the seats then tilt forward approximately 30 degrees before free falling approximately 400 feet at over 75 miles an hour. And at the beginning of the ride, Tyree is strapped into the ride and everything appears to be normal. The ride then shoots up, but on its first descent back down, that's when tragedy struck. And there's a video out there that shows exactly what happened, but I cannot show that to you guys. As the ride is descending, Tyree somehow manages to slip through the gap between the harness and the seat. He then tragically ends up falling face first onto the pavement below the ride. And needless to say, he did not survive the fall.
Oh my god guys, imagine going up in that thing and then your safety gear just suddenly clicks open. Like it won't even matter how loud you scream when you're in the ride. Because workers will probably just think you're having fun. And guys, I actually found the real footage of this kid falling off. It's a little disturbing. Like there's no blood because it's cut out, but you do see him falling in the air. Watch if you dare. Nah, that's horrifying. Like it happened so quickly, he didn't even have time to grab anything. I would have probably held on so hard to that harness that my muscles would get sore. Also, those bystanders were probably also completely traumatized. Imagine a person being slammed into the hard ground like that, and you just stand there and watch. That just gives me chills. Just a fun ride and then splat. Oopsie, meat fleshy. Alright guys, I think I need to clear my thoughts a bit from all that gore. What's better than more gore? Have y'all ever been scammed while trading in a game? I remember my little sister doing a trust trade with someone on Adopt Me, and then they just scammed her. She was so sad, but it was only for a couple of days. It made her stop playing all the time at least. Well, some people when they get scammed for little things like this, don't react as samely as my sister. This next kid actually got brutally murdered and raped because he scammed someone for $2 worth of stuff. Take a look.
Disturbing things that you should never look up on Google. 16-year-old Daniel Petrie and 12-year-old Gabriel Kuhn were two friends from Brazil who were both fans of an online role-playing game called Tibia. But on July 23, 2007, after Gabriel borrowed some in-game money from Daniel but was unable to pay it back, Daniel became absolutely furious. He stormed into Gabriel's room and proceeded to attack and rape. After that, he strangled Gabriel with a wire until he fainted and went on to cut off his legs with a hacksaw. Gabriel regained consciousness and screamed in pain, but Daniel just kept cutting. The autopsy revealed that Gabriel was alive while his legs were being cut off, but soon died after due to blood loss and pain. Daniel was later sent off to a juvenile offender and served just 3 years in prison.
2 in-game dollars and you kill someone? You should have been locked away for the rest of his life. Like, how did he only get 3 years of prison? Like, he literally took away a human life. Like 70 years of someone else's life. And he only gets locked up for 3 years? Like, that's so crazy to me. Like if someone stole my brain rot, I'd be kinda mad and beat them up in game. But this is just next level stuff. Okay, speaking of getting beat up, this next guy got beat up badly. But not in the way y'all think. Y'all know how Santa Claus goes down the chimney from the roof? I actually feel like that's kinda weird because he's always depicted as being a fat old man. I don't know if I believe him fitting down a chimney. But guys, apparently it's not just Santa who shouldn't sit down a chimney, because most chimneys are actually very narrow. This poor kid wanted to try being Santa, and instead got beat up by the chimney. Take a look.
This was 14-year-old Harley Dilly that lived in Ohio. Harley was last seen alive on December 20th, 2019. At 6:15 that morning, he approached his mother and said he wasn't feeling good and that he couldn't go to school. His mother then obviously said get to school, but Harley was then pronounced missing the following evening. When he was reported missing, police searched all of his friends' houses and his ex-girlfriend's house. They obviously searched his home as well, but he was never found. A month went by and Harley was still not found. This was until police got a tip to search a house that was in Harley's neighborhood. The house was under renovation, so they just looked into the windows, and they didn't see anything. The police then entered the home with permission from the owners who were not staying there at the time. And they were then immediately hit with the smell of decomposition. And while searching the second floor, they found Harley's jacket next to the fireplace vent. And since they were so close to the fireplace vent, they looked inside the chimney, where they found the decomposing body of 14-year-old Harley Dilly. So what they think happened was Harley got on the roof somehow by himself. He then went and crawled inside the chimney feet first. Harley was 4'9" and wore clothing from 10 to 12. And the interior of the chimney was 9 inches by 13 inches. And his shoulder width was about 12 inches. And when Harley realized he was stuck, he began to take off his clothes. They believe he then tried wiggling and he got stuck. Like permanently stuck to where he couldn't move at all. This is the chimney he was stuck in, and they say his right hand was stuck behind his back, and his left arm was stuck against his chest in a way of which his forearm was touching his chest. And his head was pointing up. He died from compressed asphyxiation, and it likely took several hours for him to die.
It's so sad, guys. I don't think he was trying to be Santa Claus. I think just he really didn't want to go to school that day and was afraid to be spotted outside. So he found the only solution to go into an abandoned house. And guys, that's why you shouldn't climb into chimneys or any dark hole where you don't know how far it goes. Apparently, it can be deadly. Like he was probably inside screaming his lungs out for help, but no one could hear him. And he must have been in there for such a long time, since his body was already starting to rot. Alright, Vanilla Beans, this next video is so disturbing you might have to skip it. This father was like training his kid or something, or at least pretending to, by making the kid run on a treadmill. But the way he was doing it was just obviously wrong. Like this kid was being put in treadmills going the speed of sound, almost like the dad wanted him to get hurt. Well, what ended up happening is just heartbreaking. Take a look.
In this footage, Christopher was making Corey run on the treadmill. And not just a casual, normal run though, he kept turning up the speed on the treadmill. Because of how fast the treadmill was going, Corey fell off of the treadmill not once, not twice, not even 3 times. Multiple times. There was a huge bruise on his chest, bruises on both of his arms that looked finger-shaped like somebody had grabbed him very hard, and there was also a large bruise on the side of his body around his hip area. Bree decided she'd finally had enough. She filed an emergency custody order, practically begging the court for full custody of Corey. When she was asked why she did this, she very plainly put it that it wasn't just because she was trying to protect him from any future abuse. She literally feared for his life. April 2nd, 2021, at 3:30 p.m., Christopher called Bree to ask her for Corey's insurance information, his medical card information, because he said he's now taking Corey to the hospital. Yet, he refused to tell her which hospital he was taking him to. So she started calling all of the local hospitals, trying to pin down where Corey was. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't figure it out. She basically just had to sit there and wait until Christopher finally felt like putting her out of her misery and giving her an update. Sadly, it wasn't Christopher who ended up explaining to her what was happening with Corey, because around 6 p.m. that night, there was a knock on Brianna's door. It was the police, and they gave Bree the devastating news that no mother ever wants to hear.
Guys, the kid actually fell on the ground so hard that he had inner bleeding. Guys, that dad is definitely not innocent. Like, what is he doing putting a child on such a fast treadmill? And then he just leaves him? I don't know if this is some sort of twisted training method, like no pain, no gain type stuff, but this dad is just disgusting. That speed was obviously not correct for that kid. Now I definitely understand why kids aren't allowed in the gym. Okay guys, speaking of bad parents, imagine you're born into an American home with a young mom and dad. Happy days pass by, you're just doing toddler stuff. But one day, you somehow end up tied up in a trash can. Yes, that's literally what happened. I still don't understand why the parents did this, so if you guys can figure it out, leave a comment. Okay, let's watch the video.
This is the outfit that baby Evelyn was wearing when her body was discovered. This is just one of the many disturbing items brought out as evidence during her trial. They also showed the trash can that her body was discovered in. She was placed inside this small trash bin, wrapped tightly in a blanket with aluminum foil also wrapped around her entire head. And the onesie that she was wearing was covered in insects when she was found. This is the playhouse that her body was discovered in. The playhouse was located on Megan's father's property, which was Evelyn's grandfather, and he is the person who reported Evelyn missing in the beginning.
That's so heartbreaking. She's such a cute baby. That mother does look a bit young though. Do y'all think this was a teen pregnancy type thing? Like the mom couldn't take care of the kids, so they just decided to commit murder? Yeah, that still doesn't justify it, but I hope they rot in jail forever. But guys, let's use this as the word of the day. Comment jail time if you've watched until this point in the video. Let's confuse the people that haven't watched until now. Alright guys, for this last one, we're taking a trip to Disneyland. I personally haven't been there before because we don't have a Disneyland in my country. But I've heard it's like a big fun amusement park. I think I would have loved to see all the princesses as a kid. Or right now. But Disneyland wasn't so magical in the 1970s. Some people had the most terrible experience at Disney. Especially those who got brain-eating amoebas. Check this out.
No, because imagine your child getting their brain eaten at Disney. You probably have no idea that Disney actually had a separate park called River Country back in the 70s. It was sat right on Bay Lake. It was essentially a water park near Discovery Island. But in August 1980, a little 11-year-old boy called Robert Johnson Jr. visited the park. He was super excited. He was going to spend the day just swimming around, going down flumes and having a great time. He had no idea he was about to meet the most sickening fate. Now, because this water park, like I said, was more rustic than an ordinary type of water park, they didn't have like the fully chlorinated pools like you would usually expect. It pulled the water from Bay Lake itself. It obviously gave it a feeling of a more natural swimming hole. But there are reasons that most water parks use chlorinated water, because deadly bacteria can spread in warm fresh water. And horrific for Robert, a deadly organism travelled from the water up through his nose and started eating his brain. You get a headache, you start shaking, you start vomiting, and then you develop into having seizures. People report hallucinations, and then ultimately you die. But after Robert's death, the park didn't close. They kind of doubled down on this. They were like, yeah, this does happen sometimes in fresh water, and they just carried on. The water park only closed down when people stopped visiting it way later in 2001. It just became way less popular, and new laws made untreated lake water illegal.
Thank God it's closed now, guys. It's not really Disneyland, but it was connected. But still, it's crazy that such a large corporation as Disney couldn't figure out you need to kill the bacteria in the water. Why wouldn't they just use chlorinated water? Maybe to lower costs? Like, who approved that? From now on, I'm never going into water that doesn't smell like chlorine. I am not having my brain be eaten by some real parasite. At least y'all won't have to be worried about that stuff anymore. As long as there's chlorine, you'll be fine. These bacteria also need warm, fresh water to survive, so I'll stick to swimming in the ocean. Alright, that's all for today, guys. I hope y'all didn't get too scared about these kids dying. Y'all would probably all live long and happy lives. I hope you learned something new. And if you did, remember to like and subscribe. And as always, stay safe. Bye bye!